Hello there and welcome. My name is Maya. I am a registered dietitian and the president and founder of Nuaria Wellness. We are Bridgemark's wellness team, and together we have created a type of toolkit for you to use for your organization, your staff, and your employees during this time. This toolkit includes some handouts. There's about 5 handouts that include things like stress management, nutrition, exercise recommendations, supplement recommendations to boost your immunity, hand washing protocols. And then what you're about to engage in next is a webinar with myself. And that webinar topic is why we panic and how to stop, how to stay mentally well during this time. Before COVID-19, 80% of small, medium, and large-sized businesses are investing more in stress, meditation, and mental health, mindfulness type of corporate wellness initiatives. And so this is very timely and very appropriate as everything is going on. We wish you well, and we wish that this brings some sort of clarity and peace into you and your organization. Feel free to share it with your family as well. And remember that please check with your insurance carrier if you have any questions about specific medical questions. And of course, Bridgemark is always here as a resource too. So here's how our webinar is going to work today. There's 4 parts essentially that I would like to, well, 3 parts that I'd like to review with you. The first part is we're going to go through some handouts. I'm going to, if we haven't met before, I'll certainly give you some background information to who I am and who Nuaria is and what we do. And we're going to go through a few handouts that we've created for you, which will be available to you after the webinar. And as I mentioned, if you are in the public, we will have a web page with the webinar replay and all of the handouts available for you for download. If you are in the corporate sector, we will be either emailing for you or you'll get the link as well, where you'll have a full packet that you can share with your employees. And I will go through specifically before we get into the main webinar portion of what we're talking about today. I'm just going to go through some basic diet, supplements, exercise, gut health recommendations and references during COVID-19. And we'll talk a little bit about the media, and then most importantly, the largest chunk of what we're going to be discussing today is why we panic and how to stop, how to stay mentally well during this time. No one really ever teaches you how to think during a pandemic. That's not necessarily a book that you can go and pick up at any time, nor would someone probably be interested in even reading it. So here we are, we find ourselves at a place and space and time where we are having to learn how to think differently in order to move ourselves out of habitual panic, stress, or anxiety at this time, which is my area of expertise and where I'm here to help you with today. And I'm excited to do so. I'm going to give you as much information that is evidence-based as I can, and I'll introduce you to the tools we use here at Nuaria and end with very, very practical tools that you can use right now to practice reducing and slowing down the momentum in your habitual thinking that is causing the panic. And most importantly, what I find most helpful a lot of the time is to understand why. When I understand why something is happening, I feel better about it because I know why. And we're going to go into some brain science today, where you'll understand what is happening both within you and within our world. And when you have that clarity, if you're anything like me, it will bring you some peace as well. So that is my intention for you today. I'm going to be giving you some information, as we say here at Nuaria Wellness, that knowledge means nothing without the integration of that knowledge. So if we don't do anything with it, it will not help us at all, especially when we talk about the brain science and how to reduce your own panic, stress, and anxiety. Learning is nice. Integration and implementation is where we are at now. And I will give you prompts on how and when to do that. Now, I'll back up for just a short moment. My name is Maya. I am a behavioral registered dietitian. I am a diplomat of the American Institute of Stress, the founder and president of Nuaria Wellness, where we serve both the public and corporate sectors. We help people to change their health by teaching them how to change how they think instead of what they do. We believe most people know what to do today, and the problem lies more so in learning how to think differently instead of do differently. So we combined We combine evidence-based practices in medicine and nutrition and give you those steps, but most importantly, teach you how to integrate this long-term for the rest of your life. And much of my passion, so Nuaria has been around since 2012. There's 9 of us on the team. You can check us out at nuaria.com. I'm not going to get too far into that because that's not why we have gathered here today. At the very end of our day today, I'll go more into potentially how Nuaria can help you right now, some of the things that we are creating for both the public and corporate sectors that can help you through this time, which I'll mention later on. Let's get you some information now that you can start using. So maybe you're at home, maybe you're at work, and settle in for a little bit. Please, if you have any questions, go ahead and put those in the chat box, and I'd be more than happy to answer any of those questions at the very end. We'll save some time. So the first thing that I want to review with you now, you're going to get these are 5 handouts. These 5 handouts are, they're going to review some, let me come back to the video here. They're going to review some important information for you. So the first handout looks like this. You're going to get COVID-19 nutrition and exercise recommendations. So a few things that I want to highlight on here for you. Nothing has changed in terms of different things to eat, different things to do. We're still recommending, of course, a minimum of 30 minutes a day of moderate exercise. So you're getting 150 minutes a week. This is my dietitian hat for you. Nutrition recommendations, of course, fruits and vegetables. If you don't have access to fresh, frozen is always going to be your next best option. Of course, canned stays in the cupboards longer. Healthy fats are an important modulator in our immunity. If you grew up in the fat era, fat is bad, it's going to kill you, it's going to be a heart disease. It's not really what we're talking about right now. We're talking about healthy fats as in real whole food, avocados, oils, avocado oil, oily fish and nuts, all of the good whole fats, butter over margarine, real whole food. That's what we're looking for. But fat is a very important contributor when it comes to our immune system health. You want to make sure that you're getting enough water in. Water is important, of course, in flushing the body out and staying regular. So I'll touch briefly on gut health and digestive health. If you've heard anything about gut health or digestive health, it's a very popular hot topic, or has been the past year or so. Our gut health, or gut, our digestion, as funny as it sounds, our mouth out is one long tube, and each part of that tube has different pH levels and bacteria levels. And the regulation and smooth flowing of every part of that, because normally right now we just pop a pill if we have an issue, then every part of that, maintaining every part of that to optimize our health is crucial, because that's the place where we take in our vitamins and nutrition from our food. We integrate it into the body, absorb it, process it, change it into something that we can use, and ultimately eliminate it. Our gut is home to 95% of our serotonin receptors in the body. And so our gut health plays a lot into our immunity and our mood. There's lots of research in the area around anxiety and depression and how that is highly tied to our digestive health. So when I say stay regular, that means make sure you are going to the bathroom every single day. Reach out to us if you need any help with that, if you're having any issues with that, and we'd be more than happy to help. I wanted to touch briefly on some supplementation recommendations. Now, these are all supplements from that for immunity, specifically evidence-based preventative immune support, supplement-wise, that you can be taking that is going to support your immune system and support your immune function. Now, something that I am going to do for you underneath this video, let me make note of all of the extra things that I mentioned to you so I can put links later on. A good dear friend of mine, her name is Dr. Emily Park. She was trained in Western medicine and is now a functional medicine. She's worked at the Cleveland Clinic and many many other fantastic, wonderful establishments, and she now is in Scottsdale, Arizona. She put a fantastic video out going much deeper into supplementation regimens, not only to stay healthy and keep your immunity up, but for those of you who actually might feel sick. Of course, the bottom line, make sure that you are always speaking with your physician. A lot of them are offering telehealth and telemedicine. Make sure you're checking with your insurance carrier about the options as well. This is a great time to make a quick note that I wanted to make mention to you. I want to get real clear. This webinar, before we go into the supplementation, it is not about statistics. It is not it's not about statistics. It's not about the state of our economy and where COVID-19 is. That's not what this webinar is. I want to make sure that you have a very clear expectation of what you're going into. Nutrition, exercise, supplementation, and most importantly, why we panic and how to not panic, how to stay mentally well during this time. Which we're going to go into. So make sure also know that while I am a healthcare practitioner as a registered dietitian, working primarily in the areas of permanent change and stress, anxiety, and mental health, I'm not your doctor. So make sure that you are always checking with your doctor because there's sometimes, depending on what medications or current specific disease states you may be experiencing, there could be contraindications with medications, things that you may have going on, such as omega-3s and blood thinners. You want to make sure that you're always talking to your physician first, because I don't know your specific situation and what may be going on. So make sure that you always speak with your doctor. And again, if you are, check with your insurance carrier on that as well. So some of the supplementation, some of the basic stuff, we'll start with the basic for just a moment, and then I'll go into some additional supplementation. So vitamin C, the typical recommended preventative immune support is between 2,000 and 4,000 milligrams of vitamin C per day. When you can split that, you can go all the way up to 5,000 milligrams a day. When you can split that up throughout the day, and that has been shown to be most effective, meaning don't get all your 5,000 in 4,000 at one time. Splitting it up could be very helpful. Zinc lozenges. So this is how viral infections are transmitted, and this is how they get in, is oftentimes through the face and the nose and the eyes. So zinc lozenges, zinc is very beneficial when it comes to preventing or slowing the progression of viral infections. So zinc lozenges that you can suck on and coat the mouth and the throat with can also be very helpful. You can also follow those zinc lozenges up 3 to 5 times a day. Those are pretty common, and you can find those. Elderberry syrup, a teaspoon a day, has been shown for preventative support. Now, vitamin D, of course, if you are low on vitamin D, which you'll only know through a blood test, then you want to make sure you're taking as much as you need to, or that was prescribed to you in vitamin D, to get those levels up. Now, in addition to what you have been prescribed, then you can also take, I believe it's, there's my note here, 5,000. I use 5,000 units. Yeah. So whatever you've been prescribed, if your vitamin D is low, if it's not, then don't worry about it. So in addition to that, you can take 5,000 extra units per day for 1 to 2 weeks. Now remember that vitamin D, along with vitamin A, can be toxic in high amounts. These are the recommendations in terms of taking what you need to get you to a regular baseline amount. And then you take 5,000 extra for 1 to 2 weeks. Now, if you have kidney issues, if you have liver issues, make sure that you speak with your physician first, because high doses of D or vitamin A can be toxic to the body. Vitamin A is also a fantastic one, especially in the form of cod liver oil, organ meats such as livers, about 50 I use per day. You can do that twice per day for 5 days. Vitamin A is very beneficial when it comes to immune support as well. We did talk about gut health. While you're at home, if you are at home, you do not have to have an Instapot. You do not have to have a pressure cooker. You can do it right on your stove. Since a lot of us have more time at home now, learning how to make bone broth could be very beneficial as well, since our immunity lies in our gut, making sure that our gut is in tip-top shape, that we are eliminating every single day, and that bone broth has the amino acids that we need to heal and repair what they call the endothelial cells, or the cellular lining of our gut, of our digestive system, our small and large intestines. And that can be very helpful in terms of making sure that our gut is working as optimally as it should. Having said that, probiotics are always a good idea as well. Now, if you're new to probiotics, I know there's a lot of kinds out there. Start with something that's around 30 billion. If probiotics is not something new for you, then of course that's something that you're probably already taking, or that a unit 30 billion that you've already been at before, so you can increase that if you need. I will put a link to Dr. Emily Park and her video that she put out on the supplements for basic immunity. And then if you are feeling sick, as she goes more in depth with the supplementation. So I'll make sure that you have a link to that so you can watch her recommendations. As I mentioned, she's been a friend for a long time, and I trust her completely. So it's just a great short video that could be helpful if you want to take that further. The next handout, I won't go into all of them as depthfully as I have this one. The next handout we have for you, yourself, your friends, your family, your employees is all about, you guessed it, washing your hands. When to wash your hands, why to wash your hands, and how to wash your hands. Something that honestly was new for me is that you scrub your hands for 20 seconds, and if you need a timer, you'll hum the happy birthday song from beginning to end twice. So you'll get that you can post. The third handout is basic hygiene and things to clean now, specifically for those of you who are at work and what to clean around your desk area. Hygiene, distancing yourself from others, taking care of your toothbrush, spending time outside, getting enough sleep, and how to clean your keyboard, computer, phone, water bottle, pen holder, and desktop. So you'll get that as well. Lastly, there are two handouts that we have for you on stress management. One teaches you how to do progressive muscle relaxation and what the purpose is. And the second is 4-7-8 breathing technique, the 4-7-8 breathing technique. So all of these handouts you will receive. Like I said, if you are part of the public, then you will receive the replay with this, and you'll have links to that you can download. If you are in the corporate sector, you'll get all of this as a packet with a link for the replay of this webinar and those downloads, handout downloads that you can use for your employees. So the next, obviously, big piece that I wanted to go into with you is the reason that we've all gathered here today, and that is the webinar piece on why we panic and how to stop, how to stay mentally well at this time. So where's a good place to start? As I mentioned to you, the purpose of this is awareness. And my intention, you'll gain a lot of awareness throughout the rest of this webinar today. And within that awareness lies the seed of change for you, in the ability to actually learn about yourself, learn about what's happening around the world. And for those of us who feel as though the rug of uncertainty has been ripped away, this can give you a stronger, more real sense of certainty. And you probably learn what I mean by that over time. So I'm going to take bits and pieces. I had wrote the media had asked for a article version of this, so I'm going to be taking some of the article version that I had written into bits and pieces and breaking it down for you. So what we're seeing right now is, so those of you that have experienced habitual stress on a low-grade state and anxiety kind of right underneath the surface, you're feeling the effects of its inflammation right now. And for those of you that have actually suffered prior to all of this from anxiety on a regular basis, it's almost debilitating for you at this point. So whatever camp you fall under, this will be helpful in knowing exactly where that comes from. Now, the World Health Organization actually has seen the increase in mental health instability, so to speak. When I say mental health, I mean stress, anxiety, frustration, overwhelm, hopelessness, depression, despair. Those are all types of habits of emotion. And when we say habits at New Aria, what we mean is habits are as easy as brushing your teeth, driving a car, riding a bike. These are things that we experience on a very easy and effortless basis. And for a lot of us, these are habits of emotion. When we talk about mental health, we see the inflammation of what I like to call less than desirable emotions. And that is my intention to help you with today. So the World Health Organization has, they have seen that there has been an increase in mental health instability, and they've issued some guidelines. And these guidelines are this. They say, number one, no blaming or shaming of affected countries and people and races. Just no blaming or shaming. Now, number two, they want us to not refer to COVID-19 or the infected as the diseased, rather, someone who has gotten sick or something along those lines. You can understand and feel the stigma with that. Number three, avoiding overconsumption of media. All we can do at this moment in time is take one day at a time. And after coming out of last week, I think that we all can come to the conclusion that the overconsumption of media certainly does not help anyone who has experienced habitual stress, or like underlying low-grade anxiety and stress, or true anxiety and depression that they've had beforehand. The overconsumption of media does not help in any way, shape, or form. Staying informed is important, and I'm sure that there are trusted places and spaces that you can get that information from. You're seeing a swing happening right now, which I will talk about, in habits of thinking. It's a mirrored reflection of the collective thought, which means there's a lot of all or nothing thinking happening right now. The people who are believing that we're going to get 10,000 times worse, that there's so much more we can do. I say this without any right or wrongness in here. There's just, I'm showing you the potential swing, because on the opposite end, there are the people who believe there's nothing wrong and this will blow over. And none of these places really serve if there's an overage of panic versus an overage of walking out into public beyond quarantine and actually being sick. Thinking in the middle, thinking in 50%, is actually something that we all have had somewhat of an issue with for many, many, many years. And that is something that we will talk about in terms of your thought. So the overconsumption of media happens because of our own responsibility to our own thoughts and emotions, and the media watching a lot of the swing. So protecting yourself and being supportive of others, being smart, and then being supportive of others. Sharing positive messages to help the balance of the swing of the all or nothing, and then honoring our caretakers and healthcare workers. Those are the World Health Organization's guidelines for protecting your mental health during this outbreak. Now, I want to pose to you, which will give us the whole big picture of why we've gathered here today. I want to pose to you the problem in all of that, so to speak. There is nothing wrong with behavior change, but while changing your behavior provides a short-term relief, yes, it does. However, if you are someone who stress, anxiety, frustration, overwhelm, sadness, depression, despair, if you are someone who has had those things as habits in your past, even before this outbreak, the change in behavior can only provide short-term relief. The stress and anxiety will quickly return if the source of it all has not been addressed. And the source of it all is our thinking. The source of it all is our thought. which I'll explain to you, and I'll show you a picture of the New Aria method and what that looks like. But first, it's a logical step-by-step methodology to understand and put into brain's terms what's actually happening. Now we're going to go into a little bit of the science and a little bit of the clarity and understanding as to your own mental health and what you're seeing in the world today. And in order to do that, I need to give you a little bit of brain science. Now, the brain inside of our head is the source of our thinking. We know that if we change our behavior short term, it may provide short-term relief. However, if we do not change the source, which is our thinking, then we're never going to get the permanent long-term relief that we're looking for. Now, the brain being our source of our thoughts, let's put it this way together, is that here's you and here's me, and here is our brain. Here's you, here's me, and here is our brain. We are not our brain. The brain inside of our head has 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts in a day. Every human brain does. You're not your brain. You have a tool inside of your head. Now, 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts in a day. There are types of thinking, which I'm going to show you next. There are types of habitual thought. Now, you and I, we lead very different lives. However, with 70,000 thoughts each in our head, 60,000, whatever, we could both be overthinkers. So you have a life and a different life than I have. However, you and I could both have an individual thought that sounds like overthinking. If there was a filing cabinet and I opened the filing cabinet, I could file that thought under overthinking thought, under that folder, right? So there are different habits of thinking. There's different habits of thought. And while some of them serve, the majority of them, for those of us that experience non-optimal mental health, do not serve. Let me show you, I'm going to share my screen with you for a second here. Here we go, share. Okay. Should flip over here in just a second for you. If you are not able to see the screen, just give it a second. These are the most common habituations of mind, of your brain. The most common habituations of your brain, I won't go through all of them, this is the majority of them, are going to be things like circling. I get on a thought and I can't get off of that thought. I think about that thought and I think about that thought and I think about that thought over and over and over again. It's called circling. Catastrophic thinking is when it's not if the sky is going to fall, it's when the sky is going to fall. Perfectionism, I think that's self-explanatory. Storytelling and perception, that is when we tell stories in our head that are not true, that cause us a lot of stress and anxiety. This funniest, stupidest example I tend to give is, you know, if you go to the grocery store and you're wearing a pair of pants you think you shouldn't have worn and somebody looks at you funny, you start thinking to yourself, I don't look very good, blah, 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 when really that person just had gas or something to that effect. When we just made up a whole story in our head that was not true, that caused us much stress and anxiety. Now, we do that all day, every day, especially in our home and workplaces and with our loved ones. So storytelling can cause us some less than desirable emotions in a non-pleasant way. Indecisiveness, in my personal experience, it's like a mini personal little hell when you can't make a decision. All or nothing, black and white thinking, that's extremism. All in, all out. Go hard, go home. Extremism, all or nothing, black or white thinking is just what I had alluded to. 0%, 100%, it's black and it's white. I'm all on, I'm all off. That's it. That's only two modes. Identity attachment, that's not me. I couldn't do that. That's not who I am. I don't have time. I don't feel like it. I don't deserve it. These are habituated thought patterns that hold us in specific ways of living They say the statistic is that 95% of everything we think, everything we do, and everything we feel is habitual by age 35. So when I think to myself, it's not who I am, I couldn't do that, and there's something important to note about your brain is that your brain only has access to past experience. The brain that is a tool inside of your head only has access to past experience. So if you want to create something new out of nothing, you cannot use your brain to get there because your brain is just one wonderful tool of past experiences. So when you hear things like, I couldn't do that, or I don't have time, I don't feel like it, those are very methodical, or that's the wrong word, mechanical, agenda-like ways of rigidity that we have set up for ourselves, that we have fallen prey to believing is true. Being afraid to rock the boat, next shoe dropping, drama, afraid of what other people will think of you, overthinking, analysis paralysis, quitting, thinking I can do it myself, procrastinating, fear of criticism, ignoring the signs and opportunities and not taking them, and ultimately not believing it's possible. Not believing it's possible is one of the more detrimental habituations of mine that I've experienced in the 14 years that I've been a coach, over 10 years as a registered dietitian. Not believing it's possible. Remember, the brain only has access to past experience. And so as such, if we want to create something new, or we've never personally experienced it before, or it's not in our immediate environment, then we don't know. One of the an awesome story I've heard before is we only know what we know. So if I was a little boy growing up in a poor community or society, and I grew up, and then I went and I went on a car ride, and I passed a house that was a much larger house. It was a 2-bedroom house with 1 bathroom, and I pointed at it and said mansion. I don't have any understanding in my brain of what a mansion is. So I may have heard the word, but I don't have anything to compare it to. My brain does not have any comparisons. So it starts creating in on itself. Now, there is something, I'm going to stop sharing here because it does take up some space. So here's you, here's me, here's our brain. Or here's me and here's you and here's our brain. The brain has 70,000 thoughts. We now have an understanding of the the non-serving habits of the mind that we engage in, and I'm sure that most of you were able to pinpoint some ones that are yourself, that create those less than desirable emotions. Now, there's something that you'll have to, there's something that you have to know about the brain's mode of operandi, so to speak, the brain's MO. And the brain, it favors efficiency, meaning that if you think a thought over and 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 over again, the brain doesn't say that is a bad thought and that is a good thought. The brain says, she thinks that thought over and over and over again. Let's just make it easier for her to think that thought. Now, if I overthink things on a regular basis, then my brain will wire, if you've seen a picture of the brain, you've seen grooves. It's like they have all those little wiggles. When you look at the brain, it actually looks like the Grand Canyon. And those grooves, what happen is that neurons start firing together in a very specific sequence. Now, if I'm a great overthinker, my brain under a brain scan would light up like a Christmas tree because I always take that path and I always take that direction, and that's what I know. And essentially what happens is when I believe that to be true with some strong emotion, whether that strong emotion be deep depression or debilitating anxiety, or the emotion is strong gratitude, appreciation, excitement, or bliss, emotion, in strong emotion, is one of the ingredients that the brain needs in order to wire something in. And we say wire it in when the brain starts that pathway. That strong emotions triggers a process of the neurons called myelination, which it creates like a high speed. It's like a high speed highway that we can just start spitting off in that direction. Meaning that if you think a thought over and over again, it will become a habit. Meaning it's going to be so easy for you to choose that thought. Meaning that 95% of everything we think is habit before the age of 30, at the age of 35. So it's going to be easy and effortless for me to always think that way. If that's not me, I couldn't do that. That's just who I am. That's not possible. That's just a pathway that your mind, which is not you, has taken repeatedly over and over and over again. The brain loves efficiency, and it does not say that is a bad thought and that is a good thought. It loves efficiency. Now, stay with me, because I'm giving you all of this information, and it's going to wrap into what you are seeing thought and emotional habit-wise, and even behavior that is happening both within yourself and our world. And when it all comes together, this is your opportunity to make some big change that without a slowdown wouldn't happen for you. So what the brain also loves is safety and survival. Now, it's wired for safety and survival. It's a very easy way that I speak about it. The brain is wired for safety and survival. 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, whatever, however many million years ago when we were cavemen, there's only 2 mistakes that we could have made. We could have thought that there was a tiger in the bushes when there was no tiger in the bushes, and then we get stressed and anxious. Or we could not think that there was a tiger in the bushes when there was a tiger in the bushes, and then we die. So we're always on some kind, now not us, the brain is always on some kind of alert, because the brain is wired for safety and survival. It will do everything it can to keep you safe and alive, while favoring the thoughts that you repeat every single day, making it easier for you to repeat those thoughts. Now, the thoughts we think, I'm going to move you for just a second because I need the whiteboard to show you something. The thoughts you think largely contribute to our emotional state. The thoughts you think contribute to your current emotional state. You think a thought and it contributes to and creates the emotion. Now, your habituated thoughts will actually create a cascade of chemicals into the body. And so when I think that thought, at some point, if they're habituated enough, can create responses such as dopamine, serotonin, all of these things. So in some way, we can become addicted to our habituated thoughts, whether they serve us or not. And I say that to you, let me put you back up here real fast. Okay, let's bring you over here. Make sure you can still see me. Yeah. Hold on, guys. All right. That should work just fine. All right. Let's put it, you should be able to see that right there. You might be on a little bit of an angle. I promise I'm not a perfectionist. That was just for any keep you straight there. Any OCD might freak out. So our thinking contributes largely to our emotional state. I think a thought and it makes me feel a certain way. You can test that with yourself in any one given thought in any one given day. Remember, you have 70,000 of them all in one day. And one thought can make you feel a less than desirable emotion, or sad, or frustrated, or angry, or furious, while you have 69,999 other thoughts that you can choose that might make you feel a little bit better. However, the better feeling emotion is not always contributing or being provided by the habitual thought. A lot of times with stress, anxiety, panic, depression, our habituated thoughts are contributing more to that. I want to show you what's happening right now as it correlates to what we teach at New Aria, because this is not about New Aria. This is not New Aria Showtime. It's not Maya time by any means. I want to show this to you because it made so much sense in my head. The entire reason we exist is because of my own health issues, because I had been very overweight in my past. I had stress and anxiety. I had anxiety and depression, debilitating stress, even diabetes because of it at one point. And I needed to change how I thought, but I didn't understand exactly what was going on. So let me make sure that you're actually in this right here. We'll put, this is your behaviors. Yeah, that'll work. That'll work. Oh, let me write these down for you. So our behaviors. Am I going out here? We'll go this way. Thoughts. Okay. So over here, you have your LC is life circumstance. LC stands for life circumstance, meaning that here's my behaviors. Now, I'll give you simple examples before we go into what you're seeing a little bit more within yourself and globally right now. Here's your behaviors. Your behaviors, for example, if I eat too much sugar, fat or inflammation on my body. If I don't save any money, no money in my bank account. It's very simple. It's very black and white, very ABC 1, 2, 3, which a lot of people like and appreciate. Now, over here is my emotions, my habituated emotions: stress, anxiety, frustration, overwhelm, hopelessness, depression, despair. These are all habitual emotions, the ones that I feel most often and most regularly. Now, habituations in thought, we just reviewed. That was that list that we looked at together. Now, again, remember, this is not for everyone. I'm not saying everyone's thoughts are horrible and unserving. That's not what I'm saying. I simply am offering some awareness for you to see that when I feel a less than desirable emotion like panic, stress, and anxiety, it is largely in part to my habituated thinking. Now, let me go back to my notes here for just a second. I want to show you a little bit of what's going on. And what we're experiencing right now is, it's ultimately a perceived, oops, I can't minimize this. I'm switching screens. Okay. What we're experiencing now is ultimately a perceived loss of safety. Do you remember I had mentioned to you that our brain favors safety and survival? The example that I gave you about the caveman. We want to stay safe and we want to stay alive. Now, that safety is often known to us through certainty. And right now, what we're experiencing is a perceived loss of that safety, which is known to us through certainty. And in some extreme cases, in actual defense of our survival, producing the pandemic fear that we are also experiencing. We are panicking because of our habitual thoughts. This, oh my gosh, what is going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen next week. What's going to happen with the kids in school? There is a massive removal of all of the ways in which the brain has set up its life circumstance. So let me put these into the formula for you, and it will make more sense. What happens when the brain, which is not you, what happens when the brain perceives this loss of certainty, which is directly tied to our safety and survival. If certainty were a rug, it has been pulled out from all of us. And we're now finding that, did we actually have it in the first place? But that might be a whole new webinar for us to discuss. So in the brain's defense, to regain control of a situation, I am not talking about control freaks. That's not what we're talking about here. The brain always wants to stay in control because it wants to stay safe and it wants to stay alive. So in the brain's defense, to regain the control that we all believe is now gone, it resorts to self-soothing efforts that, no matter how temporarily insane those self-soothing efforts are, it comes in the form of a behavior to try and control, manipulate, and try and regain control of situations that feel completely out of control. Now, let me give you some examples here. So, life circumstance has drastically changed. It is very rare that that's how this happens. Now, what behaviors are we seeing right now? What behaviors are we seeing right now? So let's take a look. I'm just making sure I'm still in the video for you. So right now, so if you can't read this, it's fine. So right now, we're looking at fighting. We're looking at compulsivity. We're looking at hoarding. These are the behaviors that we're looking at right now in order to regain some sense of control, right? The mind is like a puppy chewing up our house, our shoes, and our underwear if we realize that we are not the brain. And what we are seeing through these temporarily insane behaviors is the mind or the brain trying to regain a sense of control once again because it knows it has been lost. What are we seeing in emotions? We're seeing hate, we're seeing fury, we're seeing loneliness, we're seeing panic, stress, anxiety, depression. I had a friend who had mentioned something funny to me. He said the introverts are having a great time right now, to please reach out to your extrovert friends who are not doing so well. These are the emotions that we're seeing: hate, fury, loneliness. These are habitual emotions. Now, what about our thoughts? Now, these are our everyday thoughts that we're experiencing. These everyday thoughts are, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Now, think about your own for just a second here. I want you to think about your own emotions. I want you to think about your own behaviors. Think about your thoughts here for just a second. I've heard in the past 2 weeks, oh my gosh, what's going to happen, right? Oh my gosh, what will happen? I've heard there's not enough. I've heard, what will I do about next week's schedule? What about next week? I have also heard that this will pass. And I have also heard that we're all going to die. Which you can see right here as an example of our all or nothing thinking, right? Now, there's something that I want you to pay attention to. I'm trying to get you in good light here. There's something I want you to pay attention to is that our life circumstance has changed, is drastically changed. And because we have felt some sense of safety, survival, like we wanted to feel safe. Oh, you can't even see that. We wanted to feel safe. We wanted to, we want to survive. That's the foundation of all of this. Now, that rug has been ripped out because, as I mentioned, most of us find safety and certainty. Now, the brain, which is not us, the brain wants to regain control. And so the effort for the brain to regain control shows us what unserving habituations are there. Not enough. There's not enough. We're going to run out. I got to buy toilet paper. I got to buy water. There's not enough. Panic. Hoarding. My thoughts contribute to my emotion, which drives my behavior. So when you see hoarding, what you're really looking at is panic and a thought that says there's not enough to go around. I'm all in for myself. Now remember, our thoughts are not right nor wrong, they just are. And we're simply asking the question, is it serving me right now? And what many people are asking of us, including the World Health Organization, is to stay calm, don't panic, take care of the caretakers and the healthcare workers, be kind. If I'm coming from faulty foundations and underlying I'm in a state of panic, I can't do that. I can't do the right thing because I'm trying to regain my own sense of safety, which I am now learning was never real in the first place. So if I'm looking at anxiety, what about next week? Or what's going to happen? When your thoughts predominantly exist in the future, it creates lots of stress and anxiety. When my thoughts predominantly exist in the past, it creates much stress, creates a lot of sadness and depression. Of course, when my thoughts are now, then there's peace and contentment and calm. The point of all of this is that everything follows alignment. Everything follows alignment. And you have a massive opportunity right now to start taking a look at your own faulty alignment. My thoughts are creating my emotions, which are driving my behaviors. And we're seeing some pretty faulty alignment at this moment. So if you are in panic, or you are experiencing lots of stress, or very high anxiety, or deep, deep lows, this is what I want you to explore. You know, if it's not fighting or compulsivity of some kind or hoarding, it could also be some other form of addiction, food, alcohol, drugs, shopping, busyness. These are all behaviors to try and regain a sense of control where something feels out of control. And that is the first place that you can ask yourself about. Now, there's something I did not make mention of that I will make mention of now, and that is this little box back here. There's something that actually, a foundation that actually drives everything, right? So back here is going to be, you can see I had written safety and survival. So back here is your safety and survival. Now, I don't go around every single day thinking to myself, there's not enough, there's not going to be enough, there's not, we hoard it all. You don't think those thoughts. Maybe they show up in your emotions or behaviors. But deeply seated thoughts are your deep habituated thoughts. Those are things like there's not enough, I fear loss, the loss of certainty, the fear of pain and suffering, extremism. This is where some of the habituations of mind come in, because your everyday thoughts show you what those deeper habituations or repeated thoughts are going to be. It ultimately shows you some of your faulty wiring is what we're looking at. And that's what I'm asking you to do right now, is to take a look at some of your faulty wiring. Now, Daniel, what was his name? Kahneman? He's an author of a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And he had a quote in there that I love so much. He says, "Overconfidence arises because people are blind to their own blindness." Overconfidence arises because people are blind to their own blindness. As I mentioned to you when we first jumped on today together, was that this is, we can't change what we cannot see. So my intention for you is a massive amount of awareness today to help you to change potentially the things that you're starting to see. And you have the opportunity to do it, because this right here is what is driving your stress, your anxiety, and your panic. Now, more so, the brain has another function. It's something else that it does that can either serve us or inhibit us. And that is it's called confirmation bias. Some of you are maybe familiar with this. Confirmation bias is a tool the brain uses that basically holds true whatever we believe to be true. It holds true whatever we believe to be true. If I don't believe that, I'm not doing well, I'm not good enough, or I'm a failure at that, well, my brain will pick out, if I believe that to be a truth about myself or my world, without going too far. I want to stay as close to the science aspect as possible for you, which includes the confirmation bias. It says that it holds true whatever it believes to be true. And so if you believe that, if I believe that I'm not good enough or that I'm failing, well, I'm going to see all the ways in my world that, my boss did this, I got this email and it caused me this panic in my heart and my body before I even read the email, because I saw it was from my boss and I'm already scared of losing my job. Something like that. I come home and I see my house is a mess and the kids are fighting. Whatever those things are, your brain will pull out in your world all of the evidence to hold true what you believe to be true. And so confirmation bias is working very strongly in our world right now. Because whatever camp you're on, whatever extremism, if you're in the extremism, or the people that are, they're finding the evidence to support their belief. And so I realize what I'm asking of you is somewhat intense, but, and at the same time, I think the time calls for a certain level of intensity that is quite welcomed now that we don't really have a choice about. And that ask of me to you is to just inquire. Just inquire. Your panic will begin to go away, and your stress and anxiety will begin to go away, which I'm going to show you the brain science aspect of it all next to wrap our session up. This is awareness. I cannot change what I cannot see. I cannot change what I cannot see. This is the long-term solution. When I had mentioned to you change your behaviors, which is what a lot of the recommendations for decreasing your stress, anxiety, and panic that are happening and what to do, these are all behavior based. But what I know to be true with my own history of anxiety is that underneath the surface, as many new recipes as you learn to make, or languages you learn how to speak, or new instruments you learn how to play, if the level of thought is not changed, you will forever experience that low underlying state of uneasiness. And so the level of change of the thought is really what we're looking to do. All right, let me come, I'm gonna come back over the desk because the lighting is better for you. The next thing that I want to chat with you about is I'm gonna give you the formula of how do I actually start making these changes. How do I actually use sorry, I'm making you sick there. How do I actually use brain science to start making these changes in how I'm thinking habitually to ultimately decrease the panic? That's where I want to go next. So the path out of this heightened stress and anxiety is very real and very possible. And I'm going to put science to it for those of you who love to think. I will say this to you, it requires as much attention and care as a committed diet or exercise routine. And the first step to changing panic, stress, anxiety, habitual panic and stress and anxiety is going to be the recognition of it and the slowing down of it. Think of it this way. This is the best way I love to describe it to people is, remember the brain has 70,000 thoughts in a day. You have 70,000 thoughts in a day. Well, 50 to 70, whatever. And I cannot change what I cannot see. That was the quote from Thinking Fast and Slow. Overconfidence arises because people are blind to their own blindness. I cannot change what I cannot see. And so my intention for you is that you now see something that you may not have seen before. That is my intention for you. Now, when you see it, you can change it. And the way to see it, the way to see stress anxiety, is to start first understanding how your own stress, anxiety, and panic show up. Okay, this is step number one, and it must be done. You cannot change panic, stress, and anxiety. I'm plugging in my computer. You cannot change panic, stress, and anxiety, or frankly, any other less than desirable emotion, if you do not recognize that it is actually happening inside of you. So step one must be the recognition of the less than desirable emotion. You can do this through body sensations. How does stress show up in your body? Where do you feel anxiety? What behaviors do you start engaging in when the less than desirable emotions are heightened? You've got to be able to recognize when those things happen. Now, well, interestingly enough, for our world right now, what's being ripped away is not just the certainty, and now we're having to find our footing while the brain wants to reach for new certainty through self-soothing, which does not work. That's simply addiction. Then it's looking for, basically we want to find, if I'm feeling the less than desirable emotions, then it wants to reach for something else that's going to make it feel better. So if you're not really a feel into my body kind of person, or how does anxiety feel in the pit of my stomach, or you really can't recognize it, you can look into how you behave. You could get more clear around what are my behaviors, because remember, emotions can also drive the behavior. So what self-soothing / addiction / less than desirable behaviors do I engage in? Because that is also the gateway to understanding when I am in the midst of the less than desirable emotion. Okay, that's number one, is I have to understand and have a recognition of the emotion in action. When I understand that it's happening, here's how I want you to think about it. The brain has 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts in a day. That brain, that thought pattern, remember I had mentioned it's like when the brain creates the neural pathways, it's like a high-speed highway that goes down very quickly. It's like the grooves in the brain. If I've always gone down to the well to go get water, well, it's easy and effortless, and I've carved that path so easily and so well for so long that I know how to get there. I know what to do. And so if it's a train headed down that direction at 1,000 miles an hour, brain science tells us, hey, you can take a left turn and you can learn how to think differently habitually. You can learn how to think differently habitually, which requires 4 ingredients. I must have new thought. I must find evidence of that new thought. I must repeat that thought often, and I must have some sort of positive or strong emotion to anchor in that new thought to create a new neural pathway. I realize that's a lot. I'll repeat that later. So brain science, through practices in self-directed neuroplasticity, which is just a fancy word that says I can slow down the train and take a left. Brain science says you can take a left, and you can actually start going down to the stream to go get water instead of the well. And what happens if I don't use that pathway of old thinking, essentially leading to panic, stress, and anxiety, the neurons start to prune away, and I don't need to use them anymore. I don't go that way anymore. It's very easily to not go that way anymore, but I start creating a new neural pathway. That's what brain science tells us. And it's fantastic. It's absolutely wonderful, which means that so as long as you learn how to become the puppy trainer, the trainer of the puppy upstairs, which is your brain chewing up your house, your shoes, and your underwear, you're in complete control. And if you're in complete control, you can feel a sense of true, real, choose a word that you like to use, control, despite your life circumstance. So what I need to do after I recognize the emotion is I need to slow down the freight train. If I try and take a left turn with a freight train that's going 1,000 miles an hour, I'm going to derail. So I need to slow the freight train down and then take the left. Number one, I have to recognize that I am in emotion. Am I in panic, stress, and anxiety? Number two, I need to slow the panic and anxiety down. You know, if you have suffered from anxiety or depression to the depths and the heights, you know how it feels. And when you slow it down, then you can take the left turn and choose new thought and practice that thought to achieve habitual new thought. So the practical solutions that we can use will be these. Let me see how we're doing on time here. 3:09, good. There's a couple other slides I wanted to show you. Let me pull those up. Good. Now, doing the process of this next, I'm giving you the whole thing, and you can watch this and rewatch this, because if you've heard this for the first time, sometimes it's a lot. But I will tell you this, whether you are a mom at home, whether you are an employee or a boss at work, there's different places that you're in, there's different experiences that you have, and the stress that we experience when we, right now, well, maybe not right now in our world, the stress has become so habitual that when I am stressed, when I am in panic, when I am anxious, probably something I should have mentioned to you an hour ago on this webinar, is that when I'm in acute stress or chronic low-grade stress because of the way we live, whatever job or role that you're in, chronic stress has become a way of life. Chronic stress will decrease your immune system in one of the biggest ways possible. When I'm stressed, I'm running from a bear. And we don't know the difference between real bears and fake bears. Really actually running to save my life from a bear who is going to eat me versus a box full of emails that projects are late, or I'm fearful of losing my job, or I don't think I'm a good mother, or blah, blah, blah. These are fake bears, these are real bears. But the body has the same stress response. When I'm running from a bear, my blood pressure increases, the liver starts sending more sugar to the large muscles so I can run faster. My digestion slows down because I can't stop to go to the bathroom or eat when I'm running from a bear to save my life. And we're starting to see the effects of chronic long-term stress on our bodies and on our health. And I say this to you because ultimately this panic and stress and anxiety that you may be experiencing will take your immune system down, and that's not what you need right now either. So a way of looking at this, I'm going to break it down, and I'm going to go a little bit slower so you can understand where you're at and what your next right move is, because that's what's going to be most important right now. So what I ask of you is to find out where it is that you're at, meaning this. Number one, do I know if I am in stress, anxiety, frustration, overwhelm, panic, hopelessness, depression, despair? Do I know that I'm in that emotional state? Or have I just swept those emotions under that rug and go get busy and don't feel anything and make it all get worse and decrease my immune system and get really sick? Do I know, or run to addiction? Do I know when I'm stressed? Do I know this? Do I know when I'm in panic? Do I know this? How do I know this? Okay, this is number one. I cannot change what I cannot see. Awareness. The next step. We call this at Nuaria. There's this whole process of: is the machine going? Am I stressed out? Freight train, 1,000 miles an hour, left turn. Slow, left. Evidence-based practices in mindfulness and meditation, brain science. That's how this works. We say awareness, slow, stop, change. Awareness, slow, stop, change. It was part of the Nuaria method. So what we teach you, and this is I like the freight train example. If you're visual, that makes sense. Awareness, am I there? To slow the freight train down, some of you may or may not need all of these steps, okay? If you are someone with severe anxiety or someone with a lot of circling, remember the circling is you get on a thought and you can't get off of a thought, you keep thinking that thought over and over and over again. If you're someone with severe anxiety, circling, catastrophic thinking, you're going to need more slowing and stopping before changing. I can slow the freight train down with a couple things right now. I can do that through diaphragmatic breathing. Diaphragmatic breathing, go to YouTube. It's a perfect time for you to learn how to do this. I breathe from my diaphragm. Something as little as 4 to 5 diaphragmatic breaths can reduce my systolic and diastolic blood pressure by 5 to 10 points and get me out of habitual stress. I may still be thinking the same thing, but I'm slowing the momentum. Light touch massage. How many times have you been stressed out? You put your head on the desk and you start doing this, right? You start the nerve endings in our head and our shoulders, our back, upper back. There's a lot of nerve endings that we have, and it starts to slow that process down. Full spectrum light. I'm not saying go look at the sun, but being outside, it's why one of the recommendations right now is to be outside more often. Whether you have sun or the sun is behind the clouds, when you're in the shade, you get the full spectrum of light. Now you want to make sure if you have glasses or contacts that you don't have them on, you just allow the full spectrum of light. It helps to reset some of the hypothalamus, which directly impacts your stress response. So diaphragmatic breathing, some light touch massage, full spectrum light, these help to slow down the freight train. Now the most popular is meditation. Meditation, we're not going to go into all of it today and now. Know that 80% of small, medium, and large businesses, according to Wellable for 2020, are investing 80% more in their wellness programs in mindfulness, meditation, and stress management. And learning how to meditate. Now, whether you say meditation or prayer or mindfulness, it's part of your slowing and stopping process. So when I slow and stop, then meditation is a very important tool. Now, I'm going to give you a very brief overview on how to meditate, because for those of you that think this is meditation, this doesn't have to be meditation. It doesn't have to be this, right? And sit and cross my legs and do this. Here's meditation. It's very simple. If I have 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts inside of my head in any one given day, then here's my brain. Here's all the thoughts, right? If I think I am my brain and I don't know how to focus my brain, this is the puppy chewing up your house, your shoes, and your underwear all of the time. Did I brush my teeth today? Did I get that project done? What else needs to be done? I go to bed at night and my brain's still going, but my body's tired, so my brain just keeps going and I can't sleep because it's just going everywhere. So meditation asks this of you. Here's my brain. Here's a thought. I would highly recommend starting with a guided meditation, all over YouTube, totally free, guided meditation for stress. And I'm going to focus on a voice, one voice. That's the thought right there, one voice. And what will happen when my focus and my attention is on one thing right here, which is the voice, my brain, the puppy, is going to go chase squirrels. Did you brush your teeth today? Your job in meditation successfully is to let go of that thought and come back to the voice. Then your brain is going to chase another squirrel. Oh, did you get the project done? Let go of that thought, come back to the voice. If you come back to the voice for a millisecond, you've succeeded. That is meditation, my friend. And as you will see, some thoughts, like brushing your teeth versus a work thought or a family thought, some are easier to let go of than others. Some open up rabbit holes with a million more squirrels that you just keep going down. Meditation is brain training. Meditation is learning how to train the mind amidst chaos to stay in peace. Because when we slow the high momentum down, then with our thoughts, then we find more peace, contentment, and calm. Let me show you this. Share. High momentum wrong direction. High momentum of thinking, wrong direction. How do I know I'm headed in the wrong direction? How do I know I'm headed in the wrong direction? Because of how I feel. High momentum of thinking, 70,000 thoughts, high speed freeway, wrong direction, stress, anxiety, panic, overwhelm, wrong direction. You see awareness, slow, stop, change. I have to be aware that I'm headed in the wrong direction, known to me through my emotions. I cannot ask you to pay attention to 70,000 thoughts or you'd go crazy. My next job, this blue arrow, is the slowing and stopping process. I know I have achieved it when I feel more peace, contentment, and calm. There's low momentum of my thoughts. I can't do a lobotomy, can't take your brain out of your head, but you can experience peace, contentment, and calm despite circumstance. And number 4, of course, when we change, here's high momentum right direction, where we all love to be, and right direction is the excitement and the bliss, etc. Most of the time we bounce between here and here and here and here. Sometimes we feel as though peace, contentment, and calm for some of us is not like I should always be in excitement, I should always be in bliss, but that's just a very, it's reflective in all or nothing thought pattern as well. So here's what I have just summarized for you. Slow, stop, change, when I'm working to change my thinking. Awareness, got to know I'm there. Slowing it down, the freight train. Stopping the freight train through meditation. For those of you with high anxiety, high panic, circling, catastrophic thinking, obsessive thinking, you're going to want to look up techniques in self-directed neuroplasticity. Self-directed neuroplasticity. It's just a fancy word that means when my neurons in my brain are firing in a sequence that I cannot seem to get off of, then it stops the habituated firing. That's what happens with self-directed neuroplasticity, and there are many techniques in that for you to use. Now, lastly, how do I change my thinking to experience right direction emotion? Now, right direction simply means good feelings. I'm not going to go into all of this because that would extend our time together much longer, but I will mention this to you, is that to change our thoughts requires 4 ingredients. 4 ingredients to change thought. Now, let's be very clear. I'm not talking about positive thinking here. I'm not talking about positive thinking. Positive thinking is when I have a better feeling thought, but I immediately, it is because it's rationalization and I actually still believe the old thought, or I'm trying to get myself to believe something new, and the back of my brain always says, no, that's not true, that's not right, that doesn't work, blah, 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 blah. So it's either rationalization or you're forcing and using a lot of willpower to create new thought, which you don't actually believe. So we use New Aria to teach you new thought through brain science. There's just 4 ingredients. That's it. Number 1 is I have to have a new thought. It's why you have humans in your life. It's why we focus so much on, and I believe this in my bones, I know this to be true after 14 years of the results we've gotten, it's unquestionable. Humans change humans. Why? Because they offered you a different thought. If I have 70,000 thoughts and I have a high-speed highway going down catastrophic lane, I can't see a better feeling thought. And when someone gives it to me, most of the time I just rationalize it away. So when I have another human or I have another thought that is given to me, I can adopt that thought, because the first of the 4 ingredients is new thought. I have to choose a new thought. There's 69,999 other ones that you can choose from that make you feel a little bit better. And oftentimes, a habituation of mind is what I see is real. Not right or wrong, good nor bad, but what I see is real and true. And this is now a balance of my emotions. Dare I say that you could develop some trust in yourself to stop going outside for stuff, recommendations and diets, etc., and so on, and just start listening to your body. I'm tired. I need more water. We override ourselves a lot. So now I want to start paying attention to my emotion. The point of that tiny rant simply means that I have found a new thought that I can entertain into adopting as habitual thought to create a new neural pathway because it feels better. That's it. That's it. New thought. I got to repeat that thought. Got to repeat that thought, which means I have to stay aware. When the old thought is there, got to repeat it. Number 3, I need evidence for that thought. You remember confirmation bias? I need evidence for that thought. I need evidence that that thought is true. I'm going to reverse engineer confirmation bias, and I'm going to ask myself, we use something at Nuria called evidence journaling. Evidence journaling is the thought that you want to adopt for bed before you go to bed every single night. You find 3 to 4 pieces of evidence during your day that holds true. You want to find evidence in your world that that thought is true. So you reverse engineer confirmation bias. And the 4th ingredient in your soup of new thoughts and new neural pathways to the brain is strong emotion. Now, when you're creating new neural pathways, we encourage you to use positive emotion. And in my experience, when you start thinking the better feeling thoughts and wiring them in, finding the truth of them, the positive emotion that naturally follows is often things like gratitude, happiness, joy, contentment, and calm. Those are the 4 ingredients for new thought. So, last but not least, some practical solutions we talked about. Remember that a change of behavior doesn't get rid of underlying uneasiness. This chronic, even if you change your behavior, here's a whole list that I was reading through this morning. Slow down, go to YouTube, learn a language, learn how to cook, find a hobby, get a musical instrument, learn, improve your vocabulary, read something, go outdoors, take more rests and naps, play board games, do a puzzle, find some home improvements. These are all behavior changes, but remember, the behavior change, although you can change the behavior, it is not always going to get rid of chronic, habitual panic, stress, and anxiety. Why? Because thinking is the cause. And that's what we talked about today. So a change in your behavior is good, and it is needed right now. But what I'm also asking of you is to pay more attention to the emotion and to the thought behind it. Now, you now know and have techniques, evidence-based practices in mindfulness, meditation, and neuroplasticity. Full spectrum light touch massage, learn how to do diaphragmatic breathing. All of that will, for the intensers, the high panic, high chaos, high stress, that will stop the firing of the neurons. Some of you may not need that. Some of you may be ready to go into meditation. Some of you may be ready to go into other practices in mindfulness. It's all the slowing of the train process. And when you're ready, some of you may not need the slowing. Some of you are already advanced, and you can take the next process, which is brain science and changing of the thought through choosing new thought, repeating that new thought, finding evidence of that new thought, and anchoring it in, helping the process of myelination in the brain to actually happen, to create new pathways, new grooves through positive emotion like gratitude. So you have to know where you're at. You got to know what you need in that moment, which requires you to slow down. And I promise you, the panic will slow down too. I promise you, the stress will slow down too. I promise you, the anxiety will slow down too. And you will have a much clearer picture. And when all of that slows down, there is a question that I have asked myself now that has been proven very, very helpful. And if you're ready to hear it, you could ask yourself the same thing. Because while we're all experiencing the same thing in the world, it's showing up differently for each of us. And the question that I find most people asking themselves right now, when you dive into self-inquiry, says, if my sense of safety or certainness is now gone, what made me believe I ever had it? And if that thing or those things that made me believe I had it, are those a trustworthy source in the future? And what that does is help you find new thought on your own. That's what self-inquiry does for you. So that's why we panic, and that's how to stop your panic. I realize that is a lot. And so the only question that you can ask yourself to find out what your next right move is what is my next right move? What is my next right move? That's all you need to do. What is my next right move? And my intention for you today was awareness. That's it, awareness and clarity, to start seeing more, understanding more of what's going on within yourself and within everything that's happening around us. So maybe, just maybe, instead of panic, you can see the larger picture, to know that when you do see hate and fury and hoarding in the world, that maybe, just maybe, not now, not I'm told to have more compassion for this person. You know what they are going through, and maybe that's you. When you have an understanding of what's actually happening through a logical, linear understanding of habituations, not just behaviors, thoughts and emotions as well, you have a deeper sense of clarity. And with a deeper sense of clarity, of course, yes, comes responsibility for change, but in knowing the real source. And all of this can be explained to us through science. There's nothing new that I'm telling you. I'm just putting it into a different order, because at one point in my life, it brought me a lot of peace. So I hope it has for you today too. I promised at the very end I would make mention of a few things. I will stay on to take any questions. So feel free. I am on Zoom. I know that we are live on Facebook, but I am not on Facebook. So you'll just have to post that in Zoom, or Jacqueline can grab them from Facebook. I did say that I would make mention of a few things that New Aria is doing to help you now, that are available to you now. So I'm going to split that into the public and corporate sectors. Right now, for the public sectors, we have, if you go to newaria.com, certainly our programs are there in the areas of weight loss, emotional eating, stress and meditation. We're accredited by the American Institute of Stress, and we've got a few other dietary ones that are happening. There is something that we're going to be doing here in just a couple weeks that as long as you're on our mailing list, you'll get a word of. For those of you that are at home, maybe potentially by yourself, we'll be gathering together in a online, probably half-day workshop, so we can gather together for self-care routines. That way it can bring everybody together, even if we are further apart online. In the corporate sector, we are right now, obviously you will get this that you can give to your employees with that packet. If there's anything else we can do to help, let us know. We do run stress and mindfulness programs. Mental health was big before all of this, and I know that it's only going to increase. There's certainly a lot we offer within the corporate wellness space, and a lot of differentiating factors that we have here at New Aria. While we do specialize in mental health, we certainly offer other programs in chronic disease and things like that as well. So that's certainly not the topic at hand at this moment. The purpose of this moment is to simply bring you into a greater sense of peace and calm, and empower you with the knowledge of where your panic and potential collective panic is coming from, so you can start to reduce it within yourself and within others. And I say that to you, remember, this webinar was not about the statistics, not about things to do or what to do. I ask of you responsibility. I ask of you the 50% in the middle responsibility. The swing is already taken care of. We've got people in both camps in the swings. What we need now more is not all or nothing thinking, but balanced, responsible thinking for both your outer and your internal world of thoughts and emotions and the external behaviors. And that's what you're doing right now. So please let us know how we can be of service to you. We're working on some things that will help the public sector as well. And I'm sure coming out soon, which can be helpful. A lot of what we talked about today was about learning how to think differently. I will make sure that you have anything else that you need. We can expand upon those. I'll probably put out some more videos that expand upon each of these different areas for you as well. Anything I can do to help, please reach out to us. We can be reached at hello@newaria.com. Of course, Jacqueline@newaria.com or Maya@newaria.com are always helpful, valid emails as well.